You gotta put it in front of your chair. You have to walk around there. I put it over there by your chair. Okay?
You want me to move this over there?
Now mine is gonna be here, then
Yeah.
this one goes over there. Because that's where you're gonna sit.
Okay.
Can you slide it over there? Right, this way. Right there. Okay, you wanna put the silverware on? The knives. And put one of them beside the plate over there and one of them beside the plate over here. You get one and I get one.
This disease imposes a lot of stress upon you. I'm wondering how that's affected each of you.
Well, I think it's better now than it used to be because Everett shows much, concern and is a good support for me.
Certainly our love for each other, as Betty indicated, I think is stronger now than it's ever been. Simply because from my vantage point, I realize how much I need her, how much I depended on her in the past, how much I love her now, and I want to do everything I can to make life meaningful for her. And so for us, every day is a very special day. Mm-hmm. And our love for each other is better than ever before. Mm-hmm. And that's a physical love as well as a respecting love. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Ditto.
Some couples facing Alzheimer's disease have told me about a diminished sexual desire because of some of the daily frustrations they face. They just don't feel like they're interested in that anymore. And there's a different focus in their relationship. I'm wondering what that experience has been for you. Either a diminished desire, some people report to me an increased desire.
That's the way I feel about it. I think, I don't know, maybe it's maybe I'm greedy.
Uh-huh.
Keep on being greedy, kid. What do you mean by that?
Can you talk about that, somebody? You feel a greater closeness and a desire for Everett than before?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Well, I've always liked him pretty much. Okay, how are you folding
You want to do the t-shirts? Any way you want to do them is fine.
I doubt
Or do you want me to tell you which way to do it?
He'll be telling me in no time. I hope I see this in the...
We better have you fold your stuff.
What?
Maybe we better have you fold your stuff.
This is mine, isn't it?
I hope so. I'm in trouble if it isn't. Yeah, that's yours. Doesn't quite fit me. I was going to say, we're really into it this morning, aren't we?
Did you plant that?
I just wanted to see how you would react to that.
Oh, Everett.
You're outstanding.
I'm so excited I can't do it.
Our relationship is so complete and so committed to each other. And because, again, because of our faith, we feel God has put us together that we can give ourselves to each other completely, just no reservation.
You take more time for each other. And we agree on being intimate with one another. And it's It's really a joy.
Thanks. They are nice. You want to sniff it? You can sniff it. Not me. I think the relationship has a lot more depth to it now. Also, you realize that it isn't going to go on forever, as Betty alluded to, that today's a great day. And so we're going to keep it great, and we're going to make it as great as we can make it today. And if we should have tomorrow, or 100 tomorrows, or 1,000 tomorrows, then we're going to make those just as meaningful too. She's now in her 6th year of Alzheimer's. When it all began, I just felt like she was my wife, I was her husband, and she had some problems, and we could live with those problems. But in the last 8 to 10 months, things have really started to change a lot. And now I really see myself as a caregiver. And I'm recognizing the differences in the attitude and relationship that evolves around that. She's still my wife, and I love her, and she still loves me. But because of the caregiver role, things begin to change in terms of the relationship. And I may get a little emotional when I talk about this. In fact, I know I'll get emotional talking about this. It's almost like you're caring for an adult child. She doesn't have to wear diapers or anything like that yet, but she does have a problem with not wiping herself, and so she's developed some odor, wetness. A few times she's not realized she had to go to the bathroom until it was too late, and so she's wet herself. So it's like you're caring for an adult baby or an adult little child. And when you do that day in and day out, it's this husband-wife relationship begins to change. And when it comes to our sexuality, she's not as responsive as before. When we talk about it, she still wants to have sex. She still wants to have an intimate relationship, but it's like she doesn't know what to do. And there are times when it's almost like I get the feeling that there's this shy little girl who's embarrassed by the fact that she doesn't have any clothes on, or that I don't have any clothes on. And she's embarrassed by the whole thing. And sometimes it's this shy little laugh that really gets to be a bother to me after a while, because I'm wondering if she's laughing at my body or I just don't know why she's laughing. And sometimes she can't even tell you why, except that she says, well, I'm shy. I said, honey, we have 5 grown children. We've been married over 30 years now. We ought to be getting over the shyness part, you know. But it does change things after a while.
Betty was once rather persistent in her sexual drive, and I think you've described some of your reactions to her persistence. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
I think there were probably 2 or 3 reasons why she was wanting to be more intimate. First of all, in our work, as we've indicated before, we were always a team. We worked together. We each had our contribution to make. Suddenly, in the Alzheimer's role, she realizes she's not giving towards the work anymore. In fact, she's slowing me down a bit. And so she's felt really insecure about that. And I think rather than feeling that she's a burden, she's just tried to give herself to me to try to make up for that. I think, too, there was a point where she was jealous of me. And I think she in fact asked me once, is there some other woman in your life? And I assured her that that was not the case. Well, why don't you make love with me every day? Well, I'm tired for one reason. The schedule, sometimes when I come home, you're asleep already, you know, and I don't want to wake you up. But and then the stress of this ongoing caregiving situation just takes away the desire sometimes. So I really felt like that it was more of a security blanket for her, if you will, to know that I wanted her. Also to know that she could give herself to me. Her greatest gift was herself. And that was a wonderful gift to us. But physically, I just couldn't perform all the time, every day kind of thing. And so I was kind of frustrated over that whole deal in trying to meet her every need whenever she wanted her need met. And it became very difficult for me there for a while. And then I just have simply tried to reassure her through hugs and kisses that I love her. And there is nobody else.
In the past, when Betty would initiate sex, you told me that you were very responsive and you still were able to enjoy that part of the relationship. In light of the changes that have occurred lately, just wondering about your own reaction when either she initiates sex or when you feel the desire. What goes on with you?
First of all, sometimes when she gets amorous, we're in church, and that's not the place, nor the time. So we have to try to convince her that we'll try this a little bit later. But she still is very loving, very affectionate. She'll want to hug me or kiss me sometimes in public, and I'm a little self-conscious about that in public places. And so we kind of go with the flow on that situation. But then when we're at home, though, she'll kind of let me know that she wants to be loving or something to that effect. Well, then I've discovered now that we don't necessarily have to wait till it's late at night to go to bed, especially when just the two of us are there. And so we've been able to say, well, you want to take a nap? Oh, yeah, fine. So we go downstairs and get ourselves ready for a little nap time and a little love time. And that's been a real nice thing. But that really is becoming less and less simply because while she indicates she's interested in doing this, her responses are such that it just isn't happening. It gets very frustrating for me to be ready to do something, and then I'm trying to explain to her what we're doing and trying to get her to respond, and it just isn't a natural kind of response. Sometimes I feel a little embarrassed about the fact that I can't maintain an erection or something, so then I wonder if there's something wrong with me, either psychologically or physically or emotionally or whatever, and so it becomes a frustrating experience. I think one of the things, too, is that when we're trying to have intimacy and she's not responding naturally or spontaneously, I almost get the feeling sometimes like that I'm taking advantage of her. And I wouldn't do that for anything. But I think I'm just getting to that point in my life now where I recognize our love can be deep, it can be wonderful, it can be intimate without intercourse. I still love to hold her hand. There's something magic about her hand, and that we both feel that way. It was necessary to put Betty in a nursing home. It was a devastating day in my life as well as the life of our children when that happened. We checked out several nursing homes prior to deciding on one, and we took her to a nursing home in Bloomingdale. She had a grand mal seizure in the summer, and within a matter of 3-4 months, I had a total personality change. Her physical demeanor, everything changed about her. She was totally lost. She couldn't use the telephone. She didn't know her address. She didn't know how to get to the phone. She didn't know where the door was. Her health then began to deteriorate. She lost 35 pounds in 3 months.
You had once talked about the fact that you were really living on borrowed time with Betty, and you were making the most of every day with her. And then as she began to change, as the disease took its toll, you were really affected, as I recall, feeling a sense of distance from her. She was still somewhat amorous towards you, but you no longer appreciated that because of her physical care needs.
Yeah, I think a problem that developed between us was the fact that knowing that she wasn't in her quote-unquote right mind, I felt like I was taking advantage of her if I wanted to show my affection. There were times when I felt like she knew who I was. Then there were times when I was a man, that I wasn't her husband. and that she didn't want a man around her. She wanted to be left alone. So that was a very difficult time for us. And even though I knew she loved me, she just wasn't the Betty that I had known for so many years. So that really did become a difficult thing for us. Occasionally, even in the nursing home, I would feel like she knew who I was and she wanted to hug me, and I would hug her back. But there certainly is no appropriate place to show your affection in a nursing home. And she was at a point where I couldn't take her home. And so that the love-making part of our life was just a thing of the past.
Mm-hmm. In other words, there was no privacy at all in the nursing home. It's pretty much of a public place.
It's a public place, and even when she had her single room, there are no locks on the doors, and so there are residents in the nursing home who are happy wanderers, and they would come in at any time and often. And so it was just a regular family circus, even visiting at the nursing home. And but there were those times, I remember once or twice when I would just, and it's a single bed she's in, a regular hospital bed, but I would just lay down beside her and snuggle up next to her and just hold her. And that was gratifying for me, just to be able to hold her and to let her know that I was there for her.
Mm-hmm. Now, even at the present time, in her really debilitated state, are there opportunities to either give affection or receive affection from her?
Even as she's sitting in her jerry chair, I still put my arm around her, and I'll fluff the pillows for her. If I cry a little bit, I still love her. And so much I wish I could just hold her and feel her arms around me, but there's no response anymore. She's just there.
Mm-hmm.
And so we just deal with that. But I hold her hand. All the time I'm there, I'm holding her hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I kiss her on the forehead, or once in a while I get to kiss her on the lips. And just tell her that I love her and that who I am. I just constantly remind her that I'm Ev, and I'm the old guy that she married a lot of years ago, who still loves her very much. But I would sit in the car at night, probably for the first 6 weeks, and cry for 15 minutes, so hard that I couldn't see to drive. So I would just sit in the parking lot.
And how do you think you began to come out of this deep grief that you just described?
Well, I think, again, faith has been an important part of our life. And I just felt that God was in control even of this. And so our faith and our prayer was that God would be honored through all of this, and that maybe we could be an encouragement to somebody else. And so I just accepted that this was my lot, our lot in life. Often wished I could trade places with her. And decided that we would just make the most of the opportunities that we had. So I've just tried to be positive about the whole thing. Again, my going to see her every day, I take her laundry home a couple times a week and do that and take it back. So that while the home would provide that service, I just felt that at least it's one thing I could do that would be touching her and giving her that little added bit of affection that, whether she knew it or not, I knew that this was something I could do for her.
I've talked to some men and women who have placed their loved ones in a care facility and then began new relationships with members of the opposite sex. Could you tell me your thoughts or opinions about something like that?
Well, there was a time in my younger years when I would have considered that to be a very immoral kind of thing, if nothing else. But certainly having been in the situation I'm in now, I can understand where people develop a friendship, some close friends. From my faith perspective, it still would be considered wrong for me to have a relationship with somebody else while I'm married. That's more than just a mutual friendship. And so that becomes a difficult kind of thing to face. I have lots of wonderful friends that I feel I'm very close to, but at this stage in my life, I've not allowed myself to get beyond a certain point. I do have 2 or 3 friends that I just meet for a meal once in a while, just to hear a lady's voice is very meaningful to me, or just to instead of looking at the wall when I eat my breakfast or listen to myself grunt and groan, to hear a pleasant voice and to see a smile across the table is certainly a wonderful thing. And going to support groups, and I certainly believe in the value of a support group. I've heard, I have guy friends who have developed these special friendships, and I certainly don't condemn them for that. I think it's wonderful that they've been able to find somebody. The people at work, they really have become my family. I like people and I like to be with them. It's not easy for me to be alone. And so I just kind of fill my life with other people, and that association is my work people here at the school has become family for me. And so, as a Christian people, we give lots of hugs to each other around here, and just that's good enough to get me by. And if the time comes when Betty should die, it's pretty hard for me to be a single guy, I think, although I've been able to cope with it up to this point. But I'd like to think there might be somebody out there for me. Betty and I had talked about that even when she was still able to communicate, that if I should die before her, I would certainly want her to feel like she could remarry. And if she died before me, then she would want the same for me. And we will have wonderful memories of the lives that we've had together.